Well, welcome to the Potential Leader Lab, and I'm your host, Perry Moffmer. And today on episode number 54, we are going to explore why leaders benefit from embracing ambiguity. Just to call out, if you're listening to this on the day it dropped, Happy New Year, because it will be on New Year's Day, and I hope that you are having a restful and rejuvenating and replenishing holiday with your family and friends. And I think this is interesting because the funniest thing about this is I didn't realize this was going to be dropped on New Year's Day till after I was done writing the content. And the content is very appropriate for New Year's Day. So serendipity. We got a little bit, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. And actually, I'm really excited because I'm hoping that the content and what we're going to talk about today, what we're going to explore, provides you with the freedom to experiment and releases you from the need to know, the need to be right, the need to be perfect, the literal weight of success. And in essence, I want to free you from all of your self-imposed expectations of being right and knowing it all, with a little wink and a nod there. So it's funny, as you can tell, I mean, it's New Year's. So what follows along quickly after that? New Year's resolutions, right? So all the things we're going to do. Now, I did not know this till I started doing some research, but how bad is that? Well, the second Friday of February is actually known as Quitter's Day. And it is the day that's known for that because it's the day everybody throws in their towels on their resolutions. So we go about 6 weeks. We make it about 6 weeks, and then we throw in the towel. I think if we want some sense of accomplishment and well-being, we just need to first understand more about ourselves and our place in the world. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I talk about it all the time with folks, and that is uncertainty and our need for control, our need to believe we are in control, and what I refer to as the fallacy of control. Because as I think we could all attest to, none of us have ever been, are now, or will ever be in control of anything except ourselves. Which, by the way, is a thing that we're typically least in control of. Like, so we want to control everything out there, but really the only thing we can control is in here. And I think that we need to control out there because we can't control in here. That's at least my experience. So we're going to open with this. We're going to open with this kind of truth. Life doesn't come with a map. It's only moments of clarity in a sea of uncertainty. And I actually don't believe uncertainty is not the enemy, but the terrain of growth. It's where it happens. Uncertainty is what enables us to grow. And I'm going to talk about I'm going to refer from concepts from a couple of different books, two of my favorites. One is Jamie Holmes' Nonsense, The Power of Not Knowing, and that's really about embracing ambiguity as a source of kind of resilience and creativity. And then also from Kenneth Stanley and Joel Lehman, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. And I love that book because they talk about how greatness emerges from exploration, not rigid objectives, right? So you can see where we're tying in with New Year's resolutions, right? So we're here to confront the unknown, explore, experiment, and evolve, right? So we're gonna dive straight in. So we have this illusion of control, right? And it really is about homeostasis. It gives us permanence and stability, but it's also limiting because we like sameness. We like predictable. Although we might say we like to pursue other things, we like portions of our life to be predictable and the same. Well, that presents a problem because it's one reason why things like losing weight or breaking a habit or even changing our mind on something is so difficult because we have these set points. And these set points were designed to maintain homeostasis or equilibrium, right? Now, I'm not going to go too far into set points, but this is a fascinating thing for me. I was doing some research on set points, and I don't want to terrorize anybody, but the research says that 50% of our general level of happiness is genetic. Now, the good news is the other 50% isn't, but and again, everybody's got an argument about this, but you will find research that says that 50% of our capacity to be happy, our general level of happiness, is genetic. So blame your parents if you're not very happy, I guess. So the other half isn't, and that's what we're gonna talk about. So set points, just real briefly, and you can look them up if you want to. There's a lot of research out there. But if, for instance, if you got a promotion, if you got a raise, if you won the lottery, you got a new car. Let's take a new car. Everybody probably has had not a new car, but a car new to them. So you got a new car, and you think all the way leading up to getting a new car, it's like, oh, this is gonna be so great. I'm gonna get this car. I've wanted this car forever. If you went and bought a new car, you might have ordered it. You have all the bells and whistles. You have everything. So you get the car, and you're in the car. You're driving the car, and after, pick a number, 6 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Are you back to the set point? Because that set you return to for equilibrium. That car is no longer exciting. It didn't do anything permanent. It didn't raise the set point. You have a set point of happiness, and the argument is no matter what you achieve, no matter how much money you make and all that, you return to that set point of happiness. So there is research out there about changing your set point. So I'm not going to get into that, but I think it's fascinating to think about we all have a set point, right? Now we have to move that from the standpoint of ambiguity if we want to be an effective leader. So let's talk about Holmes's book. So ambiguity sparks discomfort, and discomfort is where innovation is born. Now, it's kind of funny because we talk about lots and lots of time. We talk about goals. Everybody's got to have a goal. We've got big goals. We've got BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. Now, overly fixed goals can actually limit creativity and block serendipity required for true greatness. So he talks about stepping stones and how great things are actually discovered through acts of serendipity. And we do one, then we do another, then we do another, and we end up getting somewhere we never intended to get, but is awesome that we got there, but we never planned on getting there. It's kind of like, the obstacle is the way. Whatever's in the way becomes the way. But we have to think about, if you think about your career choice, there's research done, and almost 2/3 of people attribute their career choice to serendipity. Now, what that means is they didn't plan on it being a certain way. They didn't start off intending to be in the career they're in. They got to it through a series of steps. Most of that time is because either they were acted on by the outside world, or they had opportunities, or they had a conversation with a friend. I mean, I actually, right after this podcast, I'm going to go celebrate a friend became an American Citizen Day, a friend and a client of mine I've known for about 8 years. He owns a really successful organization that he started, and it started with a conversation with a friend of his. It had nothing. He had never even given one thought to running a business like he started until he talked to this person. He didn't even go into that conversation with the goal of doing it. It just came up because his friend was telling him what he did, and they had a conversation, and then that spun off this idea. And 8, 9 years later, now this person's running a $30 million organization that he started in his bedroom. It wasn't his intent. He didn't grow up wanting to do what he's doing now. That was not his intent, I guarantee you. In fact, it's funny because he's the most humble person I've ever met. He would tell you he had no idea. And it's not because of him, it's because of all the people he hired that it's this much of a success. I can guarantee that's what he would say. So there's this one of the examples in the book that Holmes wrote. It's very interesting. They have this, you can check it out. It's called Pick Breeder, PICBREEDER, Pick Breeder, all one word. Now, it's a website, and you start with this blob, and those blobs evolve into images. And these images end up everywhere, all over the board. It could be a butterfly, it could be a plane, it could be anything. And it's just how you influence the picture. But you can't start out with the goal of creating a airplane or a goal of creating a picture of a butterfly. Those just emerge. And the author, they interviewed the person. It says, after years of people playing with Pick Breeder, so huge amounts of data, we discovered that the most interesting discoveries, the best discoveries on the site, you could say almost all of the interesting discoveries were made by people who were not looking for them, who were not trying to create those things. For instance, someone evolved a butterfly, but it's not true that everybody along that chain was trying to evolve a butterfly. Many people were not and hadn't even been thinking about butterflies. We found that this principle applied broadly to just about everything on the site. So these things emerge. They aren't created. It's actually kind of interesting because, he uses this example, but one of the things that had to exist to create a computer was a vacuum tube way back in the day. Well, vacuum tubes were invented, but not for computers. So if somebody had, before vacuum tubes were invented, thought to create a computer, they couldn't have because there was no vacuum tube. But the vacuum tube, again, wasn't created for a computer. So there's, and this goes back to, we can tie this in, and this is why I love some of these things, because these ideas permeate multiple fields. Because in existentialism, Sartre said, existence precedes essence. You're not predetermined. Your essence unfolds through choices you make in through the unknown. And then that's why we have explore, experiment, evolve. Explore, that piece of it, it only begins when you let go of your need to control the outcomes and allow yourself to wander or roam. That famous saying, all who wander are not lost. And it's true. But we don't do that much anymore. We don't allow ourselves that freedom to roam. We always have to have a goal. We have to have a reason we're doing something. And oftentimes that stops us from achieving something even greater. And that's what I'd like you to think about. Again, I'm not, as with everything, this is descriptive, not prescriptive. I would only ask that you think about where might there be an opportunity for you to exercise some of this. Not this is how you should approach everything. This isn't a mandate. This isn't a rule. This isn't any of those things. It's just an alternative point of view that possibly might benefit you and those around you that you're leading if you think about when is a good time to shut off the objective. Maybe we do need to give people time just to explore. I will tell you, I've had a couple really great conversations with groups of people leading up to, again, we're going back to this, is if you're listening to this the day it was released, you're on New Year's Day. If you thought about resolutions, if you thought about plans, objectives, goals, whatever you want to call them, and you thought about them as experiments, think about the pressure that releases. Because we all know that an experiment within it possesses the opportunity to fail. One of the things we don't do when we set a goal for ourselves or we set a goal at work or we're given a goal at work is we never talk about how certain are we this is going to work. This is interesting because what happens is my opinion is the underlying assumption is 100%. When we sit down and create next year 2025 plans and all of those things are written down and all of those financials are created, all the pro formas, all the tactics, all the strategies, all of those things, everything we write down, everything we share with each other, everything we talk about, all the things we commit to, the underlying assumption there is that it will 100% come to fruition. And that if it doesn't, it's a failure. Now, if we want to change that conversation and make it a very empowering, realistic, innovative, creative conversation, really all we'd have to do is when we come up with a plan, go around the table with everybody there that created that plan and ask on a scale of 1 to 100%, how certain are you that this plan's going to work? If anybody says 100%, throw them out of the meeting, then get back to the next person. Because nobody should be 100% certain that anything that they've created is going to work. Now, the real value here is people saying, they have to think about it. They have to go through in their head, how do I think this is going to work? And then for them to share, hey, I think we've got about a 70% chance. Okay. Somebody invariably at the table is going to say, well, I think we have about a 30% chance. Oh, that's interesting. Why don't you tell us why? Not, hey, get on board. You're negative. You're not on team, blah, blah. No. Why do you think it's 30%? I want to know what you know. Now imagine having how empowering and innovative and engaged that team would be if you're sitting around a table asking that question and everybody gets to share their point of view. Hell, we might have even come up with a couple things we hadn't thought about, and we can make the plan, we can increase the likelihood until everybody at the table is at least over 50%. Because I guarantee you, if you're a leader in an organization and you're having that meeting, they're not 100%. They are not 100%. But they know there's no room for conversation, so they just shake their head and go, yep, we're going to do it. We'll do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing. I'm not 100%. And here's why. I want to be 70%. I'd love to get to 80%. Because most plans, you only need, if you can get over, 65, 70% chance of everybody in the room going, yeah, we think it's going to work, then it's a good plan. That's a good plan. You're not looking for 100%. So when we do this, when we embrace the power of exploration, pursuing novelty unlocks creative breakthroughs. I mean, the Wright brothers didn't set out to build an airplane. They were just fascinated with flight. They had curiosity, which led to an airplane. I mean, we have to be willing to step into the dark. We have to go out. We can't, everything cannot be guaranteed successful. I mean, Heidegger, in his philosophy, said, he talks about being towards death. And there's a finiteness to life that compels us to explore meaning and possibility now. That's what we want to do. We want to explore. We were made to explore. We were made to question. We were made to be curious. And exploration isn't aimless. It's an intentional act of curiosity that shapes who we become. We're curious about specific things. I mean, and we have to, the next piece of this is we have to have experimentation and failure. Failure is progress. You never lose, you either win or you learn. We have to increase our tolerance for failure. And sometimes you don't see the value of that till years later. Greatness, in a way, is emergent. It happens over time. I mean, nowhere better do we see this through the existential lens than in Camus' myth of Sisyphus. The myth of eternal frustration by rolling a rock up the hill and having it roll back down the hill, and that's for eternity, that's your job. Well, Camus reframes that and says, at the top of that, when Sisyphus is standing at the top of that hill, covered in sweat and mud and blood from rolling that huge boulder up the hill, and he's watching it roll back down the hill, at that moment, Sisyphus is happy. It's reframing failure as progress. Where can you do this? I mean, where can you do this for yourself? Start there. How do you do this for yourself? Don't worry about anybody else. Here's the order in which I would suggest. You, then if you have kids, do that for your kids. Teach them this value because it will serve them well throughout their life. Then turn it to other people. But be good at it on your own. And in fact, as St. Francis said, preach the gospel and use words when necessary. So you may not have to tell anybody anything if you just show them what it's like to embrace failure as progress, to embrace failure as data points. I mean, it's so awesome because ambiguity forces adaptation. The people that succeed in life aren't the smartest or the most prepared. They're the most adaptable. It's evolution through uncertainty. It's not about having a clear goal and being maniacally focused on that one thing. Because oftentimes what happens, and I don't know how I came up with this years ago, but I think it came to me because of what I was doing. It's like standing in this long hallway of doors. And you want this door to open, you're standing in front of. So it's right up against your nose, and all you're doing is standing there. You're just standing there staring at this door, wanting it so hard. You may actually be beating on the door to open. As you stand there and do this, all of these other doors up and down the hallway are opening and closing. So those are all the opportunities available to you. But I want this one, so this is the only thing I see. So I'll share how this resonates with me personally, both for me personally over my life and then also for a dear friend of mine. So for me, from the time when somebody says, "What do you want to be when you're growing up?" From the time I can remember until a point I'll tell you about in a minute, my entire life, I was going to be an attorney. Don't know why. Must have seen something on TV. Who knows? Maybe I just like arguing with people. Maybe that's what I thought it was. I don't know. But I was always going to be an attorney. People asked me in elementary school, attorney. People asked me in junior high school, going to be a lawyer. People asked me in high school, what are you going to college for? Going to be a lawyer. When I went to college, what are you going to be? Going to be a lawyer. Right? I followed that all the way through. I actually went to college, got my degree, took the LSAT, got admitted to law school, and quit 6 weeks later. Because it was mind-numbing to me. Like, I hated it. Now, there's a whole existential crisis that happened for maybe years after that. I think it was several years because literally I was 23-ish at the time. So I had spent the greater part, all of my waking time. So probably, let's say 15 years at a minimum, with the mindset that was it. It wasn't even a question. Like, I wasn't even making a decision. It was just like something ingrained in me. So that was going to be the end game, going to be an attorney. And then suddenly, done. So that's what happened, right? That's what happened for me. So I had to embrace that uncertainty, because at that point, when I was going to law school at the Ohio State University, what happened? Fear of the known exceeded fear of the unknown. Because in my head, I didn't know what was going to happen, but nothing could be worse than having to go to law school. And I soon proved that wrong for myself as well. But that's a story for another day. So I can also tell you in college how this worked out for a dear friend of mine, one of my roommates. So Larry, his name is actually Larry Lucky. So Larry Lucky from LaBelle, Florida, was my roommate in college. And he is now a newly elected, congratulations to him, a newly elected school board member down in LaBelle. And it's awesome because he spent better part of 30 years being an educator. So nobody better to do that job than Larry. But Larry, when his first, I think 2.5 years, I'm bad with time. Larry could tell the story much better than me with very specific dates and times. But essentially the first 2 years he was in college, he was a business major. And I say business major laughing because if you knew Larry, he has no interest in business, and he was taking economics and all that stuff. And he was actually failing. I think he had a GPA of like 1.6. And there was a really funny piece of the story because, and Larry tells it, but essentially what happened, he's lamenting, we're sitting around, he's lamenting, all of this, and he hates it, and he's failing, and he was always a great student in high school, and he doesn't know what's going on. And he's like, we were talking, I go, why don't you just change your major? He's like, what do you mean? I go, don't be a business major. Because I, at the time, liberal arts college, and I was going to go to law school, so I was majoring in English Lit with a philosophy minor. I had a ball in school. I loved going to class. It was fun, right? I enjoyed the hell out of it. So I'm like, why don't you just do something you like? Screw all this stuff. He's like, well, so he goes and talks to his counselor, and finds out that he had been taking all these kind of English communication courses. And they're like, well, yeah, you could easily get a communications major and not even do anything tremendously different. You can finish that in the allotted amount of time. So he switched majors, and then he fell into the education piece and pursued that. Now, the funny part of this is, after the fact, he actually went from being on the list of potentially being expelled from school because of his grades. Like he was on the list of getting kicked out of college to the dean's list in one semester. So he went from having like a 1.6 to a 3.5 in one semester. Now, after that happened, this is the funny part. I think he changed in mid-year because when he went home that year, his parents told him, we didn't have the heart to tell you, but if you didn't you can get your shit straight, we were not paying for another year of school. So that was another, great thing is he didn't have to, he continued to, go to school and finish out. But then Larry got certified as a teacher, and he, like I said, he retired. He's 30 years as an educator administrator. Now, Larry Lucky in 1985 was not going to be a teacher. That was not his goal. So had he just kept his nose to the grindstone, he would have just got a hell of a bloody nose. So those are my two realistic, real examples of how it impacted me and somebody that I know. So I want you to remember this quote. Publius Syrus said, "It's a bad plan that admits no modification." So we do need plans. I mean, I'm not saying don't have any plan, but as a leader, you have to be open to paths that deviate from your original plan. Now, I will tell you, I think this takes humility. And I think that's something that gets in our way because we get consumed with being right, and we get consumed with being decisive because we think that being a leader means you're right and decisive, and that couldn't be further from the truth. At times, it can be. Like at times you need to be decisive, but you don't need to be decisive 100% of the time. You need to be aware of what's going on in the world around you so that you can see how that plan's playing out. And you can't become the plan. You can't become so connected to the plan that the plan is you. Because if you have humility, you see yourself as part of the world, part of the ecosystem. You're not something above or beyond it. You're not something that's ruling over it. You're part of it. And you know there are forces at play that you don't control, and that your job is to move, is to see opportunities and to shift, and to literally change your mind. Evolve your thinking, and evolve the thinking of those around you so that they understand what it is you're pursuing. Now, Nietzsche has this theory of eternal recurrence. And the theory is that your life is repeated over and over and over again, the exact same way over and over and over again. And some people would think that's terrifying. Now, I always told my kids I would never wish my life on them, but I would also never change a thing. And there are definitely pieces of my life that I made painful mistakes multiple times. And I made choices and I had to live through them with the consequences. But any one of those changes, anything I decided differently, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I wouldn't want to give that up for anything. And I believe it's a genuine miracle that any of us are where we are. Just think about all of the things that had to line up for you to be you. Just think about all the things that happened hundreds of years before, the people that connected, the people that met. All of those things happened, people moving from one location to another. All of the random acts that happened for you to be you right now. And if we understand that, then we also understand we're not in control. Like, we can lean into that ambiguity. We can lean into that uncertainty because it is the fertile ground for evolution, for our own evolution. And our evolution isn't a destination. It's a process. We're not trying to get anywhere. It's not about the goal. It's about who we become in pursuit of it. It's all, Cervantes said the journey is the end. So we're never trying to get anywhere. We're trying to lean into the unknown and put ourselves firmly inside of it. We're not trying to alleviate it. We're not trying to avoid it. We're not trying to avoid the discomfort that comes with it. William Bridges, in his transition model, called it the neutral zone. There was saying goodbye and new beginnings, and in the middle was the neutral zone. And that was where it was actually, and what I'm going to talk about in a minute, is a liminal state, where we weren't what we were, but we're not yet what we're going to be. So we're in this state, right, of becoming. And that's uncomfortable because most of us would rather rip the Band-Aid off. We don't want to go through We don't want to go through the uncertainty of not knowing and the J curve, that kind of, I'm not really good at this new thing and I'm not really certain what it's going to be and I'm struggling. Well, that's it, man. And as a leader, the practical application is we have to foster that culture of exploration, encourage curiosity, even if it seems impractical. Reward experimentation, reward effort, not just outcome. If it doesn't matter if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to lead that way. You have to teach your team to find clarity and uncertainty, because that's the only thing that is certain, is a lack of clarity. Because if we're trying to create something other than that, it's really artificial. I actually think the number one job, and you can, I believe this wholeheartedly, number one job of leaders nowadays is to create non-fatal failure opportunities for your people. You have to get them in a situation where they can have a failure that doesn't wreck anything. The best example I can give you, anybody who's ever taught their kid to drive, right? When you're going to teach them how to parallel park, you don't go to a crowded place and go, okay, let's try it now. No, you go out to I know I did. You go out to the biggest open space you can find, typically a parking lot or a field, and you get these cones and you set the cones up and they practice running over the cones essentially, because that's what they do. You don't practice, you don't use live fire. You don't put them on a busy street and go, okay, people are honking at you, better get this car parked. The same thing at an organization. We have to put people in the mode and tell them that here's what you're going to do, knowing full well that there's a high probability of failure, and that's okay. Because that's the way we figure it out. And if they have the resilience to do that, then they're going to be okay. It's so, I truly believe in this, it is an increasingly unpredictable, complex world. It turns out that what matters most isn't your intelligence, your willpower, your confidence. It's how you deal with what you don't understand. Because I'm going to tell you, I talk to leaders every day, and there is a ton of stuff they're faced with every day that they don't understand. It just keeps coming and keeps coming. It's more important than your intelligence. It's more important than your willpower, your confidence, all of that. It's the ability to deal with what you don't understand over and over and over again, and that takes humility. A boatload of humility, because you need to be seeking out a liminal space. It's where the old's gone and the new hasn't fully formed yet. It's between what we were and what we will be. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time, because here's the thing. When you get through the liminal space, theoretically, and you're this new thing, you're going to enter right back into it. You're going to, I think, if you think about this in the context of, if we think about it for, let's use William Bridges' transition model, and we use those phrasings of letting go, saying goodbye, and then neutral zone and new beginnings. I think it's like a 20-20-60 mix. 20% of our life we'll spend saying goodbye, 60% we'll spend in the neutral zone, and 20% we'll spend in new beginnings. Because once you get to new beginnings, it ain't long before you say goodbye again, because the world keeps changing. That's the only thing that's predictable. So it isn't just about our choice. It's about existing with everything else, because the world is transitioning and modifying and evolving at a dizzying pace. We don't have to keep up. We can choose not to, but again, you're going to have to make that choice. And it is a lot of discomfort. And it forces us to confront that discomfort with the unknown. So that's what we're going to get good at. We're going to get good at feeling that way. In fact, I'm wearing a shirt right now that said, "Comfort wants you dead." There it is. Comfort wants you dead. And I believe that. And I hate this whole thing about feeling comfortable being uncomfortable. No, you should never be comfortable with discomfort. Just be able to live with discomfort. There's this great, Kara Lawson, Duke's women's head basketball coach, has this great 2-minute video. It's called Hard Things. She said, great people do hard things better. And I think that's it, because everybody's like, oh, if we get through this, it'll be easy. Oh, if we just get through this month, it'll be easy. Oh, well, next year will be easier. No, it never gets easier. That's what she said. It never gets easier. And she tells her players, and if it does start getting easier for you, guess what? We're going to make it harder. So we got to do hard better. So we shouldn't want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We should just be uncomfortable because it's a motivator. I think that's what separates great leadership. They're good with discomfort. Now, they don't have discomfort in all aspects of our life, but you do have to have it in certain pieces. You have to develop the capacity for discomfort. And that liminal space is the perfect place for experimentation and evolution. It's where ideas, identities, and opportunities can shift and emerge. Right? There are no labels there. You're constantly becoming. You're not a human being, you're a human becoming. You're constantly moving. So you never get settled on a label because labels are dangerous. Labels are comfortable. If you're not embarrassed by who you were 12 months ago, you're not paying close enough attention. So that's the role, man. That's the gig. That's the challenge of leading, is you got to show people that space. Preach the gospel every day and use words when necessary. You don't have to tell anybody, you just have to be it. Here's the thing. Uncertainty is not a bug in the system. It is the system. See, that's what we have to shift. That's the big shift. That's the big mindset shift. From thinking that there are great long periods of stability with certain upheaval. That's going to lead us to frustration. That's going to lead your people to frustration. What we have to understand is uncertainty is not a bug in the system. Uncertainty is the system. That's why Explore, Experiment, Evolve is so dramatically important, because it gets people in the mindset, it gives them the freedom from despair. But you have to shift the way they see it. You got to get them up on that mountain and show them the view. Show them what you see. And explain the comfort part of that. And explain the non-fatal failures. And explain that failure is part of progress and learning. And that nobody's perfect, and we don't expect perfection. We expect progress from ourselves, from each other, from the team. And that there's lots of stuff we don't know. It is uncertain, and uncertainty is okay. Because if you're able to do that, that's when you got people that are motivated. That's when you got buy-in, because you've created an opportunity for them to thrive. Because by and large, your job as a leader is to reframe the world. You don't teach people what to think, but you do want to try to teach them as much as you can how to think. So that's it for today's exploration. Now it's up to you. All you have to do is take action. And if today's session resonated, you can subscribe, rate, share to build a community that amplifies your purpose and your impact. And until next time, remember, make your choices, because your choices will make you.